Hello, good evening. Welcome to the Premier League show. It's me, Chris Black. It's him, Kev O'Sullivan. How are you doing, Kev?
Not too bad. Not too bad.
Good,
All
good.
good. Nice flush with cash today, apparently. Us Liverpool fans.
You are Liverpool.
Liverpool.
I'm
stone broke.
Me, definitely. And we've got Jack back. How you doing, Jack?
Yeah, good, thanks. Not sure what I'm doing on the Premier League show. Like, I feel like a bit out of place at the moment, but
for a completely unbiased view.
Well, yeah, I suppose. But yeah, good. Glad to be back, guys. So thank you for having me back on.
Cool. I'm making his debut. We've got Callum from Park Lane Podcast. How you doing, Callum?
I'm all good, thanks, mate. Yeah, it's nice to be on another podcast ahead of the game and all that. So it'd be good to get some views out there.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We'll get around to that. So, but yeah, it's all Kev. It's going well, isn't it? Yeah, League Cup's ticking along. Sorry, Jack. And just in general, it's all a bit feel good at the moment, Kev. It's very different to last season, isn't it?
Oh, mate, it's night and day, isn't it? I mean, the thing is, what we need to do now is just get to half-time only 1-0 down, and we'll score 3, and we're grand. Yeah, we'll just go that way. Football's easy, isn't it?
Isn't it just Chelsea who beat 3-1? It's just the only score we know.
Fuck's sake, mate. No, listen, I watched last night. You know me anyway. I love the League Cup. I always have. But I love it for different reasons. I love it because you generally get to see the kids who impressed you during pre-season, but then disappear. And then they bring them back out for the League Cup. And you see if they've progressed. So you see what the attitude's like. And then you don't see them again. You know, so I kind of enjoy it for that side of it. But last night, that side that we put out last night was a good 11. And it was a good game. It was an entertaining game. It was a good game of football. And even the highlights of the other games that I watched last night, it was some good games, some good goals scored around the grounds as well. So, you know, it was all in all, you can't complain. Nice draw as well, away to Bournemouth in the next round. So it could have been worse. And the other side of it as well is that one of Manchester United or Newcastle will be out in the following round if we beat Bournemouth. So this competition could open right up, and the longer we stay in it, the better it is for the whole squad, you know, because it keeps everybody invested. It keeps everybody ticking over. And you have it with the Europa League as well. And it's a great breeding ground for players if they want to really push on and break into the starting 11. I mean, Callum, you guys had it early in Harry Kane's career. You know, when he wasn't getting a game, he'd been on loan at Leicester and around a few other grounds, I think. But it was the League Cup and the earlier rounds. I think it was the UEFA Cup at the time, or it might have been the Europa League, that he broke into the side and never looked back. So, I mean, what are your thoughts on the League Cup in general?
To be honest, it's the only cup that I've seen since I was born that we've actually won back in 2008. So, yeah, I do have a nice affinity with the League Cup. And, I mean, it's a great sort of breeding ground for the youth, all of that stuff. Because, I mean, yeah, I looked at just the team sheet that you guys had out, and the amount of good young players you had playing as well was great. But yeah, I mean, when you think we had Harry Kane who came through, sort of Mason, Townsend, Tom Carroll, Josh Onomah, even Winksy, like with Jack, in these, like, I wouldn't say minor cups, but no cups as big as the FA Cup in my view, apart from, say, Champions League. But when you actually get that nice aspect, to see one of your own playing is great. And the affinity to Kane is club legend for us. So I'll always back him no matter where he is, no matter if he's in Germany or over here, or unless he went to Arsenal or Chelsea.
So there are limits to the love, yeah?
Just a little bit. Just a little
bit. Jack, what did you make of your performance last night? Because I've got to be honest, I was impressed with how he stuck to his guns, playing out from the back, and literally decided, I'm playing an inverted fullback. Pereira is going to be that guy. And come hell or high water, this is how he's going to take Leicester forward and get Leicester back into the Premier League. Results aside, how did you feel it went?
I mean, it's ballsy. I mean, Maresca has shown all season that he's like he's principled. He's uncompromising. This is how he wants to play, and this is how he wants to sell. First few games of the season, it was pretty slow at times, like because you get in some of these players who a lot of the ones who we kept from last season, very, very low confidence. Like you could tell they'd almost had, like a lot of the fans, like the passion and the drive kind of sucked out of them. And I really enjoyed that he stuck to his guns last night. There's somebody made a compilation. It's about 3 minutes long last night, like that was sort of doing the rounds on Leicester Twitter, and it was some of the phases of play that we did and just how we managed to move sort of through the thirds and up the field. And you had a fairly strong team out last night. On paper, we had a fairly strong team out, but that's half of those players have barely featured for us this season. Like Suter was making his first start. Cody obviously will play more regularly, but he was making his first start. Stolarczyk played in goal. He played at Huddersfield, but that's only because Hermansen was injured. Chowdhury only started against Norwich. Cassaday's been a bit of a bit part player. Albrighton and Iheanacho sort of been in and out the side. Like Albrighton, I think that was his first start in the league this season as well. So we made a lot of changes, and the fact that we were still able to hurt you at times and play some really nice stuff filled me with confidence, because it shows that Maresca's coaching is working, it's paying dividends. And I know it's probably a controversial thing to say on here, but like it's just another exactly. It seems very early days, but it seems like another example of Pep, like almost creating another who could potentially be another top coach. Because the fact that he's come into a club that, let's be honest, over the summer, like I spoke to you enough times, Kev, was an absolute mess at times, and he's managed to get them playing some ridiculously good football. When it clicks, it clicks. Like against Norwich is probably the most complete performance I've seen us have in a long time. And like they were free scoring and we limited them to like 4 shots on target. Like we played suddenly over the last sort of 3 or 4 games has looked phenomenal. Like just the way he's been playing. Even against Bristol City, it was 1-0 and we won through a penalty, but that game could have been 4 or 5 easily. And they had 1 shot on target that was straight down Hermansen's throat in the 93rd minute. Like it was complete dominance. It's one of the most dominant displays. So the fact that he's then gone to Liverpool, tried to play the same way, tells me that this is how he's going to play in every game. Doesn't matter who we come up against, even if that's like next season, if we get promoted. Like it's good to me. Kev's just gone. He's had enough. Enough wax.
He's had enough Leicester now. That's me done.
But no, it was really good to see. And actually, I think considering the changes we made a really good account of ourselves. So
yeah, because I mean, also the youngsters, Casey McAteer, who kept getting called Jason all game, which was just grateful. Listen to the comments, they called him Jason McAteer all game. And
he's been playing like him recently. He's been in red hot form this season so far. He's our top scorer this season.
And I like the young lad. Is it Abdul Fatu?
Oh, Fatawu. Oh,
Fatawu, sorry. I knew I get his name. He looked handy when he got. But this leads on nicely to. We want to talk about the 3 promotion sides, kind of what your view is of the championship, because the 3 promotion sides have struggled this year, and particularly Luton and Sheffield United. I think Sheffield United there was a bit of a basket case behind the scenes there over the summer. You know, the ownership and the lack of money there. Luton is a bit of a surprise. So I don't think they actually expect to be where they are. Burnley's a bit of a work in progress. You know, they haven't been great yet, but they were really good last season. But how do you sort of see Leicester going down to the Championship? You know, do you look at players thinking like, wow, the gap between this and the Premier League is massive, or is it overplayed?
Yeah, I mean, last season, I think that the Championship was quite poor. And I'm just reading in the comments, Laszlo said that Burnley got the record points. They didn't even get as many as we did when we last got promoted. Record points is Reading with 106. But the standard I thought last year was sorry, just got a fact check there. But a lot of the I think the standard last year was quite poor. Like I watched the playoff final and I thought it was 2 very, very hard working sides, very, very like strong sides in terms of like they're difficult to break down, and it was a pretty turgid game for a playoff final. Like, to be honest, Burnley romped the league, deservedly so, and Sheffield United, who again I thought were good but not great last season, got promoted fairly comfortably. So I think last year the standard was fairly poor. This year, from watching a lot of games, I still think the standard is quite poor. But I think there are more teams this year who will challenge the top 2. I think if I'm looking, Ipswich look quality. We've obviously started the season like so much better than I thought we would. Leeds are getting stronger and stronger. Southampton can't defend for toffee, but have got some quality players going forward. Like who else? Like Preston, surprise package seems to be up there at the moment. I think there'll be a stronger race for the top 2 and probably the top 6. But I think this season, I think Burnley will come good. I think it'll be like, I think Company's just got to maybe compromise his beliefs a little bit. And I think if we got promoted, I think Maresca would have to do that over a season as well. Because I think the quality is just not there. Luton, we all knew Luton were going to go straight back down. Like let's be perfectly honest, and that's not me being condescending or disrespectful to Luton. They just have they're ahead of their plan. Their plan to eventually get sort of to that level. They were planning to build a new stadium, and yet that was supposed to be the stadium that kind of launched a bit like with Brighton. It was supposed to launch them into the next level, and they're already there. So I think
Brentford were probably similar model, weren't they? They got a new stadium. They feel a bit like Blackpool. Do you remember Blackpool came up?
Yeah.
And they came up with probably not when they expected to, not meant to, expected to. And it feels like that's caught them out a little bit. And it's just like, well, we'll just ride the wave and see what it is. But you do worry for them thinking like, look, they know against Newcastle is a bit of an anomaly. I know Liverpool did it last year to Bournemouth 9-0. Leicester did it to Southampton 9-0. They happen occasionally. But not that common. So I don't see Luton getting battered like that very often. But they are losing a lot of games where you're thinking like they don't feel like they've got much to create. No wonder it's just how much that sort of the fairy tale of getting promoted can wear thin very quickly. After about 5 or 6 games, you get to October and it's still not won a game.
I think the Championship, getting promoted from the Championship is a lot about momentum, though. I mean, if we look at the Blackpool one, we were in the playoff semi-final as well. That was the year that we played Cardiff in one semi-final, and I think they played. I think they maybe played Swansea, or it might have been Forest. I think they played Forest in the other semi-final. So that was like for us, we were hoping to get through because we'd have either played Forest at Wembley or we'd have played Ian Holloway's Blackpool, who's a manager who got us relegated 2 seasons ago. So there was like a lot riding on that either way if we got through. And obviously we lost on penalties in the semi-final. But that they weren't anywhere near the playoffs. They had a really strong end to the season, crept in 6th, and they were the team that sort of they went into the playoffs in such good form. I think they'd won nearly like 8 out of 10 games. So they just carried on that momentum. I think that's quite an important thing. I think Luton last season actually ended up kind of stagnating a little bit. They kind of, a lot of the teams who are in the playoffs, their form really tailed off towards the end because even the playoffs last season were wrapped up fairly early. I think like the teams 3rd, 4th and 5th had confirmed it with like 2 games to go. I think there is just a big gap at the top of the Championship now to the rest. If you look at the league table already, us, Preston and Ipswich are on 21 points, 20 points, and then down to 4th. They're then on 13 points. So there's already almost a gap forming at the top. And I do just think that I just think parachute payments and the teams that come down, like it does make a huge gulf because like for us, I know we sold Maddison and we sold Barnes and we got like nearly 90 million for the pair of them. But when we can go and quite easily spend, 10 million on Winks, 8 million on Cody, like 6 million on Mavadidi, 5 million on Hermison, like we bring in these quality players and we can just do it without a second thought. It doesn't really damage the bank balance too much compared to other teams who've got to kind of haggle for that and be a bit more intelligent with their business. But then the problem is if you look at Watford, you look at Swansea, if you don't come straight back up, then you have to sell all those prize assets again eventually. You end up languishing down there. And it's the only league in the world that I think that every team doesn't want to be in. Because you're one promotion away from being in the riches of the Premier League. Nobody wants to be there. Like every team wants to get promoted. And it makes it exciting, but it also makes teams really chase the Holy Grail. And sometimes if you look at Derby, if you look at Sunderland to an extent, it makes them, like Portsmouth are another example because they did it for a long time as well. Sometimes these teams can get so much damage and not recover from that. And I just really hope that doesn't happen to clubs because I think club football should be more sustainable. And I think the Championship is the best league in the world, pound for pound, but it's a problem. I think there's too much money at the top end, not enough money at the bottom end, and every team wants to get out of it. So I think there just needs to be a bit more sustainability with it.
Yeah, because it's got to. No one wants to get relegated, but you kind of want to make it to a point where get relegated isn't financially catastrophic. You know, it's emotionally catastrophic, but it's not financially catastrophic, and I think that's happened to too many clubs. Sorry, Fan, you said.
I don't think you want to become like one of them yo-yo clubs either. That just go up and down like a Norwich. Look at how many good players they've sold in the past. Aarons, Lewis, all people like that. Maddison, obviously, to Leicester all them years ago as well. I mean, you literally end up becoming either you're going to stay in the Prem or you're going to drop into that midway fold of just going back up and down. And going on what Jack was saying about like Burnley, Sheffield, Luton, we've already played 2 of them as well, and we put 7 past them as well. So I mean, Burnley actually wanted to play a game and were playing nice against us. But when you look at Sheffield United, the football is not nice. What they play, they play low block. I mean, I literally said it on our pod the other day. It was the football that Conte would have been proud of us playing when we had him. They played so deep and all that. It was ridiculous. But yeah, I reckon Leicester will come back up. And I actually hope Ipswich do as well, because they're one of my closest clubs to home. So I'd like Ipswich to come up. And problem is you've got Hull City. They're another one that kind of wallowed round to the bottom as well. Yeah. And then Sunderland are based on quite a few Spurs youth products. So if they do come up, then that might be interesting. But yeah, the problem with Luton is obviously their stadium wasn't meant to be completed until 2026. I don't think the full regeneration project, something like that. So realistically, they're 2.5, 3 seasons ahead of their timeline where they wanted to be. And then Sheffield go and sell all of their best players to either a promote or relegation rival in Burnley with Berg, or they sell them all abroad. So how can you sell your best players to then get promoted and not have a chance? And I think Luton are just happy to, or quite surprised to be up here. Whereas you can see a lot of Burnley signings are based on the sort of like what Manesca's doing at Leicester. It's a lot of good City Youth Academy products who are very, well, they're great players. Because I think Spurs have just got one from them in Herbie James, and he's quality for our 21s. So if you guys are getting them as well, then that's a result and a half. So at least, and just don't do what Southampton did, where they ended up ruining quite a few of them within their first year of Premier League football.
Yeah, I think like the point you made about Sheffield United and Burnley is a really interesting one, because obviously you put 5 past Burnley, and yet Sheffield United took you to like the 90, like nearly the 100th minute of the game.
Yeah.
For me, that's kind of as much as we don't want to watch that kind of football week in, week out, but ultimately that's the kind of football that's going to keep you in the league, because Burnley are going to play that open, expansive football, and against a team like Spurs who have got that. I think you look quite good in both phases of the game. You're very good on the ball, but you're good in transition as well. Against Burnley, when they're playing really open, they're going to leave those gaps. And actually, to be fair, the probably your 3rd, 4th, and 5th goals were all massively avoidable from Burnley's point of view. But Sheffield United, if you watch the 2 of them and you said which of these 2 teams is more likely to stay up, you'd probably have said Sheffield United based on the game that they gave you. Maybe not the style of football they played, but like they were closer to getting a result than Burnley were. And that's the way you've got to play. Luton, on the other hand, have recruited really well for next season. I think if Luton go down, if you look at the kind of players they brought in, they've got a very good chance of coming straight back up. Like some of the players they recruited are very, very good, or would be very good Championship players.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, based on like what you said, I mean, it got to a point where we literally had to start playing long ball over the top against Sheffield. And the problem is that didn't work because they've got some of the biggest centre backs in the league in 6'4", 6'5", 6'6". And we had to literally rely on Richarlison knocking it down in the end. But it's a football that's going to get you enough points against top clubs. But it's not going to be one of them when you're playing against low block versus low block and stuff like that. And it's such a archaic way of playing football, which is quite unfortunate when, like we say, Burnley actually want to play a game of football and want to play against people. But when you're playing against top 6, top 8, top 10 Premier League clubs, they're all going to play the same similar style. Fast pace, quick, knock it round the defender, put in your net.
Hmm.
That's what we did, because they was trying to play a high line against our press, where literally we just inverted fullbacks, wingers going forward with our forwards, all just going at their box, and they didn't have a chance at all.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well,
Kev, you,
I
you're
was
back.
going. Yeah, I'm
If you don't
back.
hear
I
about-
don't know how long it's. I
If you
don't
don't
know
want to
how
hear about
long it's
Leicester,
going to
mate,
last.
just say,
I don't-
Jack won't be offended.
I don't know how long it's going to last. My internet is. We had a really big storm with Agnes yesterday. We got caught right in the middle of it, and today most of it's been fine. You get the odd power cut and what have you, but in general, it's been okay. The Wi-Fi has actually been okay up until now when you need it. But it is what it is. I was just going to ask Jack about the actual quality. I don't know if you've asked him yet. The actual quality you're seeing game to game, week in, week out. When you look at the sides that you were playing, like I follow Bristol City's results pretty closely, and they've had a decent start to the season. And like you said, you beat them 1-0, but you absolutely tonked them, really. How big is the gap in the like you've got the Premier League with you might have 3 blocks in the Premier League. What would you say the structure is like in the Championship at the minute? Because it used to be a case of, well, anyone can really win it, when that's not really strictly true now. The sides who come down tend to have a really big advantage. And how are the rest of them coping with it?
I mean, I've kind of apologies, Kev. I've kind of explained this to an extent when you obviously were off. But I do think that the teams that come down obviously have that advantage over the rest due to parachute payments. But if you look at, like I was saying, if you look at the table now, like it's Leicester, Ipswich, Preston on 21 and 20 points, and then there's already a 5-point gap there. So you've got 3 teams, and I don't think it's going to stay like that. I think obviously we'll lose more games. Like I think in the Championship you could easily lose 6, 7, 8 games and still win the league fairly comfortably, or at least get promoted fairly comfortably. But again, you've got any number of teams that could be there or thereabouts, like chasing in the playoffs. So in the top 2, the bottom end of the table looks fairly set, I would say. Like I think teams like Sheffield Wednesday, even Middlesbrough at the moment look really poor. And obviously, as we know in the Championship, look at Forest when they got promoted. It can really change halfway through a season. I think it's too early to say in the Championship at the moment. In terms of the quality, though, until the Southampton game, I would say that we didn't really play well in any of the games. I think we played really well in patches. I think we had maybe like 10, like against Coventry. We were good in the first half. I don't know if any of you watched that game opening weekend, but we were good in the first half. Like, didn't create too much, but limited them. They came out after half time. They scored straight after half time and probably dominated for 20, 25 minutes. And we had probably a 15, 20 minute spell at the end where everything just clicked and we turned the game around and won. But then it's been the same in every game. Like we kind of were good in patches. And even though we were playing quite poorly, like I went to Huddersfield and we won 1-0, but we were quite poor. Against Rotherham, we won 2-1, but again, we were quite poor. Against Cardiff at home, we won 2-1, but we were quite poor. Yeah, we were still grinding out wins because we just have too much quality. We've got the depth that these other teams just don't have. Yeah. And then Southampton obviously put 4 past them, put 2 past Norwich. Like you say, against Bristol City, we won 1-0, but we completely dominated the game. That's the best performance of the season. Doesn't look that impressive on paper, like with the scoreline, but they had like you said, they beat Plymouth 4-1 like the game before, and everyone was still waxing lyrical about Plymouth, and then they came to us and they really did very little. So I think when we get into gear, I think when Leeds get into gear, when some of these better teams do get into gear, the gap will really show. Because you have to remember, like us, Leeds, we've had wholesale changes. It's going to take a while for the players and the systems to really settle in. So for us, I think it is now. We'll still have hiccups. We're not going to absolutely romp the league because I'm not. You know me from last season. Absolutely, not absolutely a glass half empty kind of person. But when it comes,
but it must be nice going to the ground and watching your side win.
Oh, I'm enjoying. I'm enjoying football again.
Yeah, even going like after the game, because it is soul destroying when you're watching your side and you know it's coming. And then when it happens, it is soul destroying. People forget like that shit lives with you for the week or for however long it goes until the run is broke.
Yeah,
I think it's all well and good someone saying to you, "Well, it's only football."
Yeah. Well, we had a lot of conversations last year, Kev, like whether it was on air or off air, like that.
Yeah.
The Leicester team that we had last year, half of them genuinely looked like they couldn't give a toss. Like they genuinely they'd lose games and didn't look like it bothered them. Like there was an interview last game of the season where Johnny Evans said, like, "Oh, we've all been in the changing room saying bye to each other." It's like, hang on a minute, you're club captain. Why are you saying that after we've just been relegated? Like, whereas you've got Cody who's come in now, and I know, like, obviously he was with you guys and he was an Evertonian for a bit, but like he has been involved in everything. And literally his first interview, he was saying like, this club is a top club, should be playing in the Premier League, should be like, they've got the infrastructure, the quality to do that. Like, and he's sort of saying we need to, like, he wasn't even involved last season, but he was saying we need to show the fans that we care and we're going to get them back to where the club belongs. I'm like, the fact that he's come in as an external person and said that, when the people who were here taking the money and just not giving a toss for probably 18 months in the end, like, it's so refreshing. And to be fair, apart from Maddison at the moment and maybe Barnes to an extent, all the other players who couldn't give a toss last season, they ain't pulling up any trees. Villa fans already want Tielemans gone. Like, half of them who thought they were all going to get these big moves didn't get them. So,
yeah.
I'll tell you what was good. Oh, sorry to cut across you.
No, sorry. Go ahead, Callum. Go ahead. Shoot.
I think at least with Barnes and Maddison, they actually did turn up a little bit for you last year and all that. They actually did. I know it's a bit difficult, but
Maddison didn't when it mattered. I'll be perfectly honest. It's good. I'm not taking away from him as a quality player. He's one of the best players I've ever seen play for Leicester. Fact. After Rodgers got sacked, his attitude just went. He did not get, like, I'm not being funny. Those last sort of 5-6 games, like the two best performances we played under Dean Smith, we beat Wolves and we drew away at Newcastle. Those two performances, Maddison didn't start, and they were our two best performances. When he did, like the Everton game, for example, he took we had Vardy and Tielemans both on the pitch, who were our two penalty takers. He decides to step up and be the big man and go, I'm gonna win this game, and he puts it straight down Pickford's throat. Like, it's not in that moment. You don't need a player to be the center of attention. You just want a player like Vardy, like Tielemans, who just can be composed and stick it in the back of the net. And he just didn't look like he cared. Like he was very vocal on Twitter as well. He called out a very respected local journalist who didn't even criticize the club, just said that if we carry on playing like this, we're going to be in trouble. And he was like, "Oh, we'll be fine." Famous last words, because we weren't. So
yeah, the other person I wanted to ask Jack about last night was what did you make? James Justin, I've talked about him for a while. I think he's a really, really good player. How long has he been back from his injury? First and foremost, and how do you think Ben Doak did last night? Because we absolutely love him. We think that he could be really special, but you wouldn't have seen him that much of him at all. So, what did you make of that battle last night?
I thought just in same with Pereira. Like every game, I'm like you're crossing your fingers like that, because Pereira before his injury was one of the best right backs in the league. Like there's no argument about that, and he's just been made of glass ever since. And Justin's kind of been similar. Justin's a bigger, stronger bloke than Pereira, so I think he maybe is a bit more resilient to those maybe minor muscle injuries that Pereira seems to get. But he's had 2 ACL injuries now, so I think he's nowhere near the player he was. Like he was in the England squad before he got injured, deservedly so. I'm really enjoying him being back, and he can play that kind of role that Doyle's been playing, where he can sort of play as the like left or right side of the back three, and sort of play as the left-sided, like the left back or the right back when we're defending in the 4. So it'll be really interesting to see how he sort of settles in if he can stay fit. His first game, I think, that he started was against Southampton, and he's been involved in every game since. So that's really encouraging. I'm just literally every game crossing my fingers that he doesn't pick up another injury. But I think he's still got the potential to go back to the top if he can stay fit. But that's a big if at the moment.
Right.
Okay. Go back to look.
Go on, Chris.
Do you want to talk about our apparent investment, which is, I think some people got very excited that we were going to get bought out, we were going to get sold, and it's turned out to be what I think the Chaff the Echo was talking about, saying it's just a minor investment. It's just to sort of balance the books a little bit.
It looks like it's to take the investment is something like what he described it as what's his name, Dave?
I can't his name
We've
now.
had him on here.
David Powell.
David Powell, yeah, we've had him on here before. He's a financial expert. He writes for the Liverpool, the Evening Echo in Liverpool, and he's anything to do with football finance. He's all over it, and his take is basically this is a low single-digit investment in FSG, and it's anywhere between 80 and 120 million pounds, which is basically covering the interest on the loan repayments that they already got for infrastructure, the buying back the training facility for the women's side, the AXA, the Annie Road, the extension, all of that stuff. It literally just covers that. And it gives the club a bit of financial flexibility down the line if they want to do any more business in the window, that they can go and get external money without it costing the earth, moon, and stars. Look, we were told we were going to be bought out by a Singaporean conglomerate. We were going to be touted to the Qataris. If your man got bored at trying to bid for Manchester United, he was going to come in and buy us. It was, look, at the end of the day, this signals to me that FSG are going to be around for the next 3 to 5 years. And they're waiting, like we were talking before we came on air, probably for the next, not this TV deal coming up, but the next one after. Because at the moment, the way the TV deals are done, they're done every 3 years, and it is a bit stupid because you don't know what broadcaster is getting what every 3-year period. So if that gets extended out to 5 or a 10-year TV deal, and then you could be talking big money. And that's where the American side of it, and you look at who they've got into bed with. They're experts in media, in digital media, in TV, you name it. Anything to do with expertise in getting the best value for money that you can get from your product in terms of digital media in the 21st century. They've gone out and sourced that investment and that expertise to bring into FSG. So, yeah, I think it's a good deal for the club. And long term, it secures a flexibility in the market, but that is no more than that. You know,
Yeah,
it's a good deal.
Yeah, it's not what I think many were hoping it would be like. Someone's going to buy manage stake and we have a big pot of cash to go spend on transfers. I just don't think.
No, they're looking at the long term. I think they'll look at the Chelsea sale and think, okay, well, Liverpool's probably worth slightly more than Chelsea, given the fact that Chelsea have to go and invest God knows how much to redevelop that ground to make it competitive. Because no matter what way they look at it, Chelsea is a 40,000 seater stadium in the middle of London in an area where it's notoriously difficult to build anything. You know, they can't, and they have to expand it to be able to compete with the rest of the Premier League. So, and the one thing when the sale went through, they locked Chelsea Football Club into that location. So they can't do a Wimbledon and up sticks and move it out somewhere where there's a brownfield site where they can build a purpose-built stadium like a normal club would. But
also,
they have to stay where they are.
They don't own the pitch though, do they? That's still owned by the fans, and that's the other thing. They have to get a fan vote that says they're happy to move, and they can't get one.
But FSG will look. Yeah, FSG will look at what that sale was, factor in the way football is going, which is that way, and they'll just think, okay, if we can stick this out for another 5, 8, 10 years, we'll get our money on the back end. They still don't take dividends out of the club. You know, they're not a Manchester United. They didn't buy us with debt. You know, they've increased the value of the club year on year on year, and we're in a really healthy financial state. People need to be careful what they wish for. You know, I'm happy enough with this.
Yeah, I also think if somebody does come in to buy Liverpool and it is, you know, a big investment company, it's a state ownership, stuff like that, you probably won't see about it in the press until it's pretty much done. Big deals like this, they don't sort of shout it off in the press because it's not really how these sort of big deals are done. It just isn't the way. But anyway, that's enough about football fans. Let's talk about Spurs because we are going to play them on Saturday. So you know we probably should talk about it really. But I don't know, Carol. It feels at the moment going into the season, City aside, because I think they're always happy to be fair. Spurs and Liverpool feel like the most sort of feel good clubs at the moment. You know, compared to respect to where both finished last year, how both played last year. Both just seems a bit of a buzz around them, but you know, you finally got a manager that actually, to be honest, we all want to listen to, rather than
He likes football for a start.
he likes football. Yeah, he's done the very clever Jurgen Klopp thing, which is he's got the press on side without being the mates. Which I suppose at some point, when you do go through a difficult spell, which we all will at some point this season, it'll sort of lessen the ratchet of the pressure on him. But he's just come and done things his own way. In, let's be honest, a club that seemed from the outside looking in pretty down, and I've just lost the talisman. So it was a, you know, let's be honest, not the easiest task to walk into, but can't fault it.
Yeah, when you actually think about it, when Conte left, he pretty much went, right, I'm going to burn this place down. I'm going to leave you nothing left, and I'm just going to go away. And I mean, at the end of the day, Conte had a very, very difficult year. He lost 3 of his friends. He was ill for a good about 4 months on and off as well. But when you think the Spurs was such a mess last year, director of football on charges, having the manager pulled out, 3 different managers during a season, it doesn't bode well. And then we went through that long manager search, Arne Slot, Company, Luis Enrique, all of them. And then when Ange got named, it was quite strange. A lot of Spurs fans, if they've got people who are either Celtic fans or might be Scottish Spurs fans as well, were looking at him thinking, okay, yeah, we kind of know him, but a lot of fans didn't. And to actually have him come in and deal with all the stuff he has, it's actually been such a breath of fresh air. Whenever you listen to the players talking, Basuma saying he's like an uncle or a dad to them, the group saying there's such a feel-good factor to it. It's a project, and we had to go back to something because we've had 4 to 5 years of painful promises from the club, from the players, from the management, all the way from the top to the bottom. And us as a fan base, we've been very vocal and unhappy, probably since the Champions League final we lost against you guys, with some very controversial referee decisions. But
Don't know what you're talking
Shut up.
about.
but yeah, to be honest, since then we've been sort of on a very bumpy ride, and for Ange to get people on side within, well, when was it? 1st of July he started, so we're 3 months into a project. For even the club to have a fan-led forum the other week as well, which was very interesting. We hadn't done one of them since 2018 with Pochettino. The club had been very closed off, board-wise. They weren't talking. Daniel Levy weren't talking to us. So to actually have that was very interesting. And based on the football we've seen, we know we're going to go at teams. We know we're going to hit them fast, quick, transitions, all of the different aspects to it. But we're not in a full sense of security where we know we're going to have unlimited clean sheets for the season. We know we're playing such a high line, we're going to get caught out at different points. We know that we're going to have games where we blow up on ourselves and we can't do it. But yeah, to actually be back in love with the club now and feel comfortable and happy to actually wear a Spurs shirt now is quite refreshing, because yeah, based on what we've seen for so long, you wouldn't know what's going to turn up, whether you'd either play a low block game, whether you'd want to just go and switch the TV off, or not even bother turning up to the games and all that. Because I remember I went to the stadium last year and I watched, I think we was playing Bournemouth, and we scored first, which was great. And then we had such bad things happen in that game. The fans booed Sanchez. All the stadium was toxic, and we then got up to 2-2, and then they scored a third right at the end after a wrongly disallowed goal, and the whole of top was toxic as hell. So it's just nice to actually have a manager who wants to not be your mate, but also treat you as nicely. He's humble. He wants to play football. He enjoys football. The whole ethos he's been brought up in. He's worked his way up from the bottom. He's followed people like Pep and different people like that, and he's actually built a style of football that works for him, but people like watching and enjoy playing as well. He's not sort of your boring type manager. He's going to be straight with you, and if something he don't like, he's going to say it to you, because he's already said if he doesn't like a decision at Spurs, he has control. He will go to the chairman and say, no, I want this. I need this to be done. If you're not going to do it, then say it straight to me. Don't pussyfoot around it or anything like that. So it's actually quite good to be a Spurs fan at the moment. But I'm in no sense of false security that something won't go wrong. And i.e. us either battering you guys at the weekend, you battering us, or playing out one of the highest goal scoring draws that's ever been. Let's put it that way.
I think all three of those things are extremely possible this weekend. I can't wait for it, because the way the two sides are playing, when you look at the two lineups, the potential lineups of both sides, this cannot fail but to be a good game.
Yeah.
It just cannot be anything other than a good game of football. And the way both sides are set up, the way both managers like to play the game, this is going to be completely different Spurs to what Klopp has faced in the last 3 to 4 years. You know, this isn't the Spurs who are going to sit back and try to hit Kane and Son on the counter.
No.
You know, although they might try to hit Son on the counter, but it'll be from a very different position on the pitch to where they normally try to hit him. I mean, the other thing about Ange I love is the Aussie in him. The no bullshit, no messing about, and he's such an easygoing guy. That clip that went viral at the press conference when he asked that kid to ask his question, I'm praying that wasn't staged. I don't think it was. I think that was genuine. And I've seen it before with people where they would stage something like that. But I don't think he's that guy. But I do think he's the guy who would spot something like that and who will go out of his way, cameras or no cameras, to be that person. And I think when players will buy into him. The best thing, like Chris was saying, he got the media on side without having to dish him loads of shit. And when it comes a time when he needs to force leave his hand, because that will come, no doubt, usually around the 2nd or 3rd of January, then it will be a case he will have not just fan power, he'll have influence through the media to be able to address certain things in the squad going forward and put his point across. And Klopp has done the exact same thing, where he has such a respect from within the game that he can make his feelings known without having to be direct about it. He's been around the game long enough to know how to do things and how to get things out when he needs to get things out.
Just don't ask James Pearce. Just ask James Pearce to help him.
Exactly.
I think
there's a story there coming out.
That's actually a really good point, because what it is that when you look at the way that Spurs have actually gone away about appointing him, usually a club has director of football, chief footballing officer, everything like that. We had a lot of struggles trying to get all of that in place. So we actually went for manager first without any of the infrastructure behind it. So there was a bit of existing stuff, but not a lot. And the fact that Andrew's appointed, we've got an Australian chief footballing officer who City Group wouldn't give over to us for God knows how many months, in Scott Munn as well. And he's just starting his work. But from all the information that I've been hearing is that apparently the director of football is being brought in because of the way that they work. They work like Ange does. It is someone who apparently he knows or has some links to, who follows his way of football. So for the club to actually back him and do wholesale changes to allow him to do that as well puts a lot of faith in Ange because we was giving managers 2-year contracts to Conte or 18 months, Nuno 2 years, all of that. Ange has 4 years with us as well. So he actually has time for a project. And it's like where FSG did back Klopp, because I remember the game where I think we beat you guys 4-1 at Wembley.
At Wembley, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, and one of my mates is a massive Liverpool fan, and he's literally said that was the starting point of your project, where he literally just went, I'm sick of this, it has to change. And I'm hoping that's what the club is doing with Ange now, because it had to be done.
Yeah, it's been badly needed. I mean, the thing is, you look at the stadium the Spurs are playing in now, that alone will set the club in good stead for the next 40, 50 years, let's be honest. If they can get it right on the pitch, they're a powerhouse. They could be something, but at the same time, it's gradual steps, and I think he understands the process that is needed. But you know, I watched the interview with him that he did with Gary Lineker, and he was very honest and frank in the fact that he didn't think he always believed that he would get to manage in the Premier League one day, but he didn't know if the Premier League would manage or would offer an Aussie the job. So the fact that he went to Celtic and made a name for himself at Celtic probably opened doors to him that would never have been opened ever to him other than by real football nerds. So I hope it works for him. Obviously, I hope it doesn't work at the weekend, but I hope it works out for him because he's one of these like people in football. He looks a decent skin, you know.
Yeah.
And I think he'll do well there. He will. I've no doubt in my mind. But
I still love how the media haven't worked out when he goes mate. For an Australian, that doesn't mean
there's levels of mate, isn't there?
Yeah, when that Muppet from TalkSport talks about someone singing a song for him, which is quite derogatory, and he just went, "Mate," that was just like you and me going, "Fuck off, lad! I'm not interested in your conversation." It was great because he took it in such a calm manner, which I thought keeps your level, which everyone quite likes, but shows the journalist up as a bit of a prat.
We have that over here
in the right way. You know what I mean?
There was
we have that over here with a saying like with I will yeah, and you say that to someone else in England, I will yeah, you'll do it now, I will yeah. You know that means I'm going to do it. Not here, it doesn't. Well, here it's like I will yeah, I will on my rocks.
I remember. Oh, sorry, mate.
No, go on. Sorry.
I remember one of the first press conferences he did. There was all the usuals, Football London, Sky Sports with Michael Bridge, people like that. And literally, they have all the questions prepared. And I think it got in, first question was, what do you think the injuries are going to be for the weekend? Number 2 was something else. And then number 3 was about Kane. And he literally just went, right, me and Mile, obviously because one of his assistants is Mila Jedinak there now, and he just went, we had a bet and we said, how many questions would it be until Kane got asked about if he was staying or going? And he just went, mate, I'm not being, I don't know, it's not a decision for me. He literally shut the journalist down like there was no tomorrow, but it was constant all the way through, and he'd just go, mate, I don't know. Mate, why are you asking the same question? You asked me this same thing a week ago. And it was just repetitive all the way along. And thank God that saga rectified itself. But he's just such a down-to-earth person. And he's already said he's not there to be friends with the players. He's there to guide them through their careers. And that's how I think the managers need to be. Whereas when you think of what we've had in the past of people berating players in press conferences and all that, Ange has already said if the players get something wrong on the pitch or lose a game, it's his fault because he has to make the decisions for them of how to play, of how to operate his system. So he's already taken a lot of pressure off of them and it's just allowing them to play. But there was definitely some journalists out to get him in the first couple of weeks, including that one from, I don't know if you guys saw it, the German journalist who turned up in the Harry Kane shirt with Bayern Munich written on it during the summer and all that when they was out.
Yeah, so that. He handled that. He handled that very well.
Yeah, he handled it very well, and I was very glad the Spurs media department as well literally just went, "You're banned, stay away." So,
I was going to ask you, how are you guys fixed for the weekend? Injury wise, how's everything looking there at the minute? Any news coming out from Spurs side? There's rumours about Maddison might be touch and go, but apparently he's all right now.
Yeah, based on what's come out from Ali Gold and a couple of other sources, including Sammy Mockbell this week, Brendan Johnson and Maddison are on the field training with the team. Maddison went down quite heavy in the North London derby, but got up and played the rest of the game, and it was more just tightness and caution. And Brendan Johnson, they thought might have damaged his hamstring, but it was actually just fatigue and tiredness in it, which I was quite surprised about. So they've both been training. So at the moment, we've got long-term injuries of Brian Hill, Benson Core, Sessignon, Whiteman, and I believe that's it who are out. And then we've got Lo Celso, who's a 50-50 as well after picking up an injury in the Fulham game. So we're not too... Oh, and even Perisic is out for 3 months.
Yeah, that was a bad one.
Yeah, off the ball training incident. So it wasn't even in a game, but he had successful surgery a couple of days ago, and the club have said that he's going to be out for the rest of the season, but because the man is a freak of nature in the way that he's built and made, I reckon maybe February or March he may be back if he's still at club, because he'll only have 6 months left on his deal anyway. So yeah, pretty same injury list that we've had this sort of last 7 games within reason from pre-season.
I suppose that's the beauty of not being in Europe at the minute, is you can actually manage. And it's probably the one thing that I expected better from Chelsea. I'll come to you with this. I expected more from Chelsea this season with the fact that they don't have Europe. Pochettino has time to work with the players. And yeah, they got a win last night against Brighton. But when you look at what Spurs are doing with their time, and you look at what Pochettino is doing with his time, new manager in the league, manager who knows the league, both with squads that you'd say Spurs are probably where they should be with the squad. I don't think they're punching too high with that squad and that time. But what do you make of what's going on at Chelsea at the minute?
I mean, the first thing you say is that you look at it and you go, there definitely ain't £1 billion on the pitch. When you look at their starting 11, you go, I don't know where £1 billion gone. The other thing you would say is that, like, obviously we've gone into like a lot of like really, really good points there about how Postecoglou seems to be on the same wavelength as everyone else at Spurs. Really, they seem to be kind of working in tandem. I don't get that same feeling at Chelsea. It feels very much like Pochettino is a good manager. Like he's a very good manager in my opinion, but you feel like he's being given a lot of players that maybe he doesn't want to work with. Like you get the impression that a lot of these players that they've signed, they're just signing because they're young, talented players. They want to build with that, the amortization of the contracts and stuff. I don't know how much say Pochettino is having over some of those transfers. And I think that's hindering him. I also think that Nkunku getting injured in preseason is a huge loss because he looked really, really good in preseason. He looked really good last season. And I know, obviously, Chelsea have got a bad track record of signing good players from Germany to the Premier League, see Werner and Havertz. But like, I just think that Pochettino and the board are not on the same wavelength at all. And I think Pochettino has just been given a load of young players. There's, apart from Thiago Silva, there's not really any leaders in that team. And Thiago Silva, bless him, as good as he is, he's nearly 40. Like,
what's wrong with that?
Well, no, I'm just to say, to play an elite level football, there's maybe something wrong with it. But I just think that if they'd have invested a little bit more money and gone, right, we'll sign a lot of these young players, but we'll sign, I don't know, a player in centre mid who's maybe 28, 29, somebody who's like a senior figure. We'll get another centre half who's maybe coming into their prime, like who's a top level centre half, it may just give the spine of the team a better balance. But yeah, I don't know. I thought they'd have started better given that they haven't got Europe and things. But I mean, I think they'll come good, but I just don't know if it'll be this year. I think if they really give Pochettino time in maybe next year or maybe even the year after, because of the average age of the squad, those players in theory should only get better.
The other thing I'm going to stick with Jack because you're the neutral on the show. How do you see this weekend going? Because I think this is a massive clash. It's two good sides, both playing well.
Are we decided we're going to invite Jack back yet?
Yeah, we have.
Someone in the chat. Someone in the chat was absolutely fed up with me. I was being asked about championship stuff. He was like, "When's he going to shut up?" I was like, "I ain't talked for 20 minutes." When he sent the message, what's going on here? I thought, what am I doing? Gave up my evening to come and share me insight, and I'm getting.
I mean, it was Kevin who wrote it, to be fair.
Yeah, probably it was his burner account. That's what he was doing when he was off. But to be fair, it's a really, really interesting one. And even as a neutral, I do not know how to call it because you both started really well. I would say out of the two, from what I've seen so far this season, I would say that, I mean, depends if Christian Romero is starting. Spurs look a little bit more susceptible at the back. I think with your attack could really hurt them. If I was going to put money on it, I'd be really safe and say a score draw, a bit like Arsenal Spurs at the weekend.
Yeah, I think I don't know how this is going to go. I genuinely don't. But I fancy us with the forwards that we have available and the depth. That front five is as good as anything out there for me. When you've got Darwin, Salah, Diaz, Gakpo, Jota. So you pick 3 from 5, and then on the hour, you're going to get another 2 coming in to freshen it up. That's going to give people nightmares for 95 minutes. And that'll be relentless. It's going to be interesting to see how our midfield holds up and marshals the Spurs counter, because Andrew's got them moving in certain ways that you really got to be on it. You really got to be switched on. And McAllister, Szoboszlai, and more than likely Jones, but could be Gravenberch, they'll have to be on it defensively. They'll have to be really sharp. But yeah, it's going to be a fascinating one. Chris, how do you see it?
I fancy Liverpool to win because our record at Spurs is pretty good, but it's always a tough game. It's always an entertaining game, to be fair. There's always I could just be bored to say 3-1 because that's always seems to have done for the last 6 weeks. It's just win 3-1. It doesn't really matter who we're playing. That just needs to be the score. But I think it'd be more of a tight game. It'd be like probably a 2-1 Liverpool. And I think it'll be one of those 2-1s where it has to be a late goal because it's never an easy game. You know, the fact that we've got Kane's always a bit of a winner for us, but you know, there's still a lot of quality that's going to cause us problems, especially when we've got unmotivated Maddison, who his link up with Son is look, as a neutral, it's really good to watch. So I think that's going to cause issues. Intrigued to see who plays at right back. Trent's back in training, and from Klopp's comments, it doesn't sound like Joe Gomez was rested. It sounds like he had a niggle, but he should be fine for the weekend. So I think they'll both feature, just which one does the 60, which one does the 30.
Yeah. Callum, from your side of things, how are you looking forward to this? Because you've had a top run of fixtures. North London Derby, Liverpool. It's not they're not an easy run. So when you were coming into it, what would you be looking to get out of this?
I think I said to the guys, out of the next 5 fixtures, I would, and this was just before the North London Derby, I would have been happy with 9 points.
Remind everyone, what's your next 5? You had Arsenal, us.
Arsenal, us, or you guys, and then let me just have a look. We've got Luton away on the 7th. We've got Fulham at Spurs on the 23rd of October, and then Crystal Palace as well. So my hope was more for the points around there because I thought they was quite early in the project to start hammering on the doors of the big sort of six, I would say, because realistically, yeah, we've beaten Man United, but they've got their own sort of problems to deal with. Let's put it that way. To go toe to toe with Arsenal last weekend, I think it was even good that a lot of the pundits from Arsenal's side said that we actually gave them a good game. All that, apart from Darren Bent on Talksport this week, but that was just
Darren Bent.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
I know he's an Arsenal fan, but he did play for Spurs, and I would have hoped he would have been a little bit more balanced in his views than being a knob. But
Is he the one that Harry? Is he the one that Harry Redknapp just destroyed and just said like my grand could have scored that goal?
Yeah,
that was pretty much Darren Bent done then.
It was literally a sitter, and then Darren Bent just went on strike just for a couple of months, and literally he said, I think Redknapp said his wife could have scored it or something like that.
Yeah,
that was
something
it.
like that.
That was
Yeah.
it. Yeah, it was his missus. Yeah.
But yeah, so I think this game is going to be won by the midfields this weekend. I reckon because we both got susceptible defences. Because Van Dijk, don't have the legs he used to. I think that I don't know. I don't know whether he's as good of a player as he used to be or not.
He's far better than what he was last season. And we did post-match shows every game last season, and he came in for absolute pelters. He's been very good this season, very good. Especially his distribution from the back out to it's the one thing that none of the other centre backs have is that ability to make a 50-yard crossfield ball from Salah to be pinpoint every time.
Mm-hmm.
He's still, and he actually looks a lot sharper. I think the one thing with Van Dijk at the minute, the captaincy has taken his game back up a bit. It's a case of who's going to be next to him, whether it's going to be Joel Matip or Ibu Konate. And on the strength of what we saw last night against Leicester, Ibu was mustard last night.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be fascinating for me to see who Spurs start up front, because if it's going to be Son as a 9 or Son from wide with Brendan Johnson or maybe Richarlison, given the history with Richarlison has with Liverpool. How do you see that one? Who would you be starting up front?
I mean, to be fair, Richarlison does have a bit of a record of scoring against you guys, doesn't he?
Yeah, but one's the count.
Well, that one did count last year until Lucas Moura gave Jota the ball. But I mean, that one.
I forgot all about that until someone said it in the chat.
That's one of the best games I've been to. That is one of the best games I've been to. That last year.
To be honest, even from a Spurs point of view, we was awful in the first half.
Yeah.
Then you guys were just confused for about 30 minutes, and then just that winner, it killed everything. But yeah
that game encapsulated our season last season in 90-odd minutes. That game, it was just absolutely ridiculous. Brilliant for a bit, shite for a bit. Give it away, get it back.
It summed ours up in that.
Yeah,
we had a balance, and then we blew ourselves up again, and all that. And that's something that I hope that we're not doing. But we saw at the weekend, Arsenal only scored because of a debatable penalty and Romero deciding they wanted to become a striker in his own net as well. Because, I mean, it was a finish and a half if you got that from a striker. But, yeah, I think that based on how it's been, Son's got 5 goals in the last 3 games. So I'd go Son up top with Kulusevski on the right and Brennan Johnson off the left. Because I thought Johnson actually played well against Arsenal. And
he's a good player.
Yeah, we all know that these price tags are inflated, and he had the English tag on him, or the British tag. So literally, it was always going to be inflated. But I think he's a good player. Richarlison as an impact sub, I think is a good option. But to start against Liverpool, I think that's a a lot of pressure on him when he's still quite low on confidence as well.
Yeah, it's still a potent front four when you look at it on paper.
Yeah.
It has everything. It's got pace, it's got technical ability, it's got a dribbler, it's got
And when you got
an absolute
Maddison
goal scorer as well,
and Maddison
and a
feeding
magician. Yeah,
as well, yeah. And then you've got
Yeah.
Sarr and Basuma sitting behind them, doing all the sweeping up, tidying up, and Basuma's runs. I mean, like what you were saying off air, Basuma is outstanding this season. How Conte devoided him and decided that he weren't going to play. I mean, there was a ridiculous article that I saw the other day that apparently Basuma was going to do charges against Conte for image rights and breaking him down and ruining a season for him. And I'm just like, how is that going to work? But yeah, so I mean, it was very interesting. So we'll have to see. But no, I reckon 2-2 draw at the weekend, mate.
it'll be a cracker for sure.
Kev,
Chris?
who you going as the number 9 for us?
Darwin.
But I think it's Salah and Diaz. I think they're locked in.
Yeah, Salah, Diaz, Darwin. Salah, Diaz, Darwin. I'll go from front to back. Szoboszlai, McAllister in the 6, but it won't be, 6. I don't know who's going to play the left 8. I don't know.
I was surprised Jones started against Leicester, to be fair.
I was surprised he played as long as he did, but I was glad he played in the role that he did because he was really good. I think it's Wills. I think it'll be Jones. I think Trent could get 60. The Ibu starts. Virgil, Robbo, Ali.
I think it's Ibu. It's Ibu Matip, isn't it? He's wondered because Matip didn't play at all midweek. He wondered if he's being rested for this game, but we'll see.
Possibly. I mean, at the end of the day, no matter which way you look at it, the depth that's there, that's going to be available to Klopp off the bench, is going to be there to affect. You have depth there that can affect the game. Where last season, with the injuries that we started to get, you were looking at the bench thinking, my God, if they can't do anything with the starting 11, there's nothing coming off the bench to affect the game.
Yeah.
And that's the difference of where we are as to where we were. It's a combination of things, but the fact that Dominic Szoboszlai has hit the ground running so well. McAllister's come in and done a position that he was nobody would have said he's going to be signed as your controlling centre mid. But he's jumped into that role, and his pass for Núñez at the weekend was just sublime for his goal. And you've options on the left that no matter which way you want to go with the game, whether you want someone with a bit of steel or a bit of control, or you want someone to be more aggressive, you have those options off the bench to change it if need be. So I can't wait for it, to be honest. I'm really looking forward to this one.
Before we go, Kev, how many times have you watched the Szoboszlai goal now?
I'm not talking about that. What I do in my private time with my FaceTime, with my phone on a loop, is my business and no one else's. What a hit that was! That
went dark very quick, that, Kev.
It was like the way that pass came into him, one touch, bang. It was the fact when you see it from behind, there was no swerve on that. That was just pure power, and it was straight as a die. Keeper had no chance. It was just a bullet of a shot, and I haven't seen a midfielder wearing a number 8 for Liverpool doing that for a long time.
That was a nice.
Definitely
nice
didn't see that with Naby Keita.
He did score some from distance, not that tight.
Not that.
Type of shots from distance, yeah.
No,
cool.
it's ridiculous. This kid at his age will, in my opinion, by the end of the season, look like the absolute bargain. It's obscene to call £60 million a bargain. But at 22 years of age, if we didn't sign him and he ended up at Manchester City,
he'd be fuming.
I mean, I can actually say it this year, but I can actually say it this season for the first time in years. But what do you expect when one player costs more than our starting 11? But no, it was one hell of a strike. He looks. I think he'll. I mean, I thought he'd be good. Like I think it all relied on, in the Premier League in particular, it all relied on if you could get that protection sort of behind him, losing like Fabinho and losing Henderson. If you could get that player to replace them, he was always going to have that platform to go on and to be a bit more expressive. But he's a quality player, and I think you're right. In the current market, it's a decent deal. I think. I wouldn't say it's a bargain. I don't know if I'd go that far, but it's a very good deal, I think, in the current market.
The reason why I say it's a bargain is I think that in 3 or 4 years' time, you're going to have the likes of Madrid looking to spend big on someone like him. I first saw him playing for Hungary, and I think he was only about 18, playing on the left wing, and I thought he was really good then, but I didn't know if he'd have the work rate going the other way. He's 6'2" and he gets around the pitch like a winger. It's scary. I'm looking forward to watching us play. I always love watching Liverpool play. Like you guys all love watching your clubs play. But if they were playing an under-23s friendly and he was just dropped into it for a while, I'd watch it for him. And I'm 50 years of age. I don't get like that with players. He's just got something about him that is just a bit different, you know?
Very true, very true. Right, before we go, Callum, thanks for coming on. I have no doubt we'll have you in again. Where can people find you?
So it's at CallumStubbs97 on Twitter, and I am co-host of the Park Lane podcast. So give us a shout and follow, and we'll be happy to have a chat with you. So, no, thanks for having me on, mate. It's been great.
No worries. And Jack, where can everyone find you?
We're on Twitter and YouTube at Forza92 Pod or Forza92 Podcast on YouTube. So yeah, same. If you want to give us a follow, like subscribe on YouTube, and we're more than happy to have you on and have a chat as well.
Awesome. Kev, you're here all the time.
I'm here all the time, mate.
Yeah. Is it me, you and Matt again on Saturday?
Yeah, because I think this game is just going to have so much to talk about. I can't, no matter what happens, there's going to be something happening. Something's going to happen in this game for sure.
Well, fingers crossed to talk about a win. It'd be quite nice because we've got quite used to them now, Kev. They're quite nice, aren't they? We don't talk about anything else. On that happy note, we'll let you go. Please like and subscribe and all that good stuff. And we'll see you all tomorrow when hopefully we'll talk about Liverpool win. See you later.